And there you go, John. That was the procession going through Dublin City. As you can see, there was lots of police all over the place. And Joe Biden hasn't even arrived in Dublin yet at the moment. He's down in County Louth. So we're going to talk about the lack of policing in Ireland and how come you never see police on the street anymore.
Yes. Yeah. So, did you show that video with the police there?
I
Um,
did indeed. Yeah, yeah. That's
so, yes. So there was hundreds of police all about the place on duty.
There was absolutely. It was amazing to see them come through the street. It's always exciting when you see a procession and these important people. But that was the preparations anyway. That video there, and it's nice
Right.
to see. It's nice to see the president of the United States. It's always nice to see him come to Ireland. It's a sign of good connections, good relations, and prosperity as well. But I suppose what we're
Okay.
really going to talk about is the lack of policing in Ireland. You never see police on the street anymore. So.
Oh, well, funny enough now, just as you were talking about President Biden coming and all this out, I was just saying to myself, I wonder if I was driving in Dublin with all this paraphernalia be out. I doubt it very much. I'd probably be raining and I'd have to have a number at it. By the way, Joe, we call him Joe. Well, Joseph, I suppose. I don't know what his second name was. I know he's a son called Hunter.
Mhm.
Now, I don't think there's any Saint Hunters. Do you know of any Saint Hunters?
I don't.
Yeah, there's some called Saint Hunter, but we digress. I don't know if Hunter would be with him, but anyways, I think he's coming on his own. I don't know if his wife is with him.
Mhm.
She minded the house at home. Anyway, mum's the word. So it was all these police that was knocking about. A strange sight because let's try to spot a policeman is like to spot a fairy or something like that caliber. You're not going to come across one. I've come from Donegal down to Cork, and dibble of one did I ever see. Now that's a very strange thing because police to be seen in the community is a very important thing because it safeguards people. It safeguards people in the city that are at risk.
Yeah.
You're in the city, and there's all sorts of people knocking about that are liable to sort of try to rob you.
Mhm.
If you're anywhere, but you're not just used to sort of minding yourself. And sometimes tourists come here and they think they're coming to a very peaceful country. They don't realise what they're up against at times. And the lack of police is an example of that because policemen were always very good, especially during the city, to ask for directions. Because they generally speaking would know the thing and you could trust what they had to say. And if they didn't know, they'd find out for you. And so they were important in many respects.
That's right. But the thing about it, I mean, look, the Gardaí have changed over the years, and there's a few restrictions that have changed in the Gardaí. One is that you can be 5 foot now, and you can be you can be 5 foot tall, and you can be a Garda now. Okay, you can have a
Correct.
beard, you can have a beard, you can have a turban. You can. They got rid of all the restrictions, but one thing they got rid of was the height, and I think they should have kept the height because having a tall guard,
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
The Gardaí should be over
Exactly.
6 foot, I think, and if they're not, they
Well, I
don't.
think there used to be 5 foot in this country. They were 5'9" was the height.
Hmm.
I one time did the exam and passed it. And when I was measured in the Garda station in Clontarf, I seemed to be 5'10". But when I was up in the depot, and I had a successful interview and all the rest of it, and was called, and there was three guards examining people, I think for their eyesight and that. But I had a misfortune. I have an older fella, and what was he doing as I was doing the eye test? Smoking a pipe, and it appeared to be blowing it in my face.
No, no.
Now I can't put up with that at any stage. And I wouldn't like to be in an organisation where I might have to contend with superiors of that calibre.
Yeah, yeah. I
So
think
I just
it's
said, would you put out your pipe while I'm doing this? And so because he examined me so carefully, and I think I was either an eighth of an inch too short for the 5'9".
Okay.
And so I never made it just as well, because my father, Lord of mercy, he was a guard and said, never touch it. You're always in uniform in your mind. Well, that was them times, because they were very good in the community, and everybody was safe in the community, and they knew everybody and everybody knew them. They weren't regarded as them and us, and they knew what was going on.
Well, this
Did
is
you
the
ever
thing.
experience that?
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing is, I remember I moved back down to Kerry to live with my aunt for 2 years in 1990, and I was only in the town 3 days when I was stopped by Sergeant O'Leary. Sergeant O'Leary was a very bullish guard. He was fantastic at his job, and he knew every single person in the town. And not only that, if if there was a thief, he'd follow them through the fields. If they burgled the house, he was going to get them no matter what. That's the kind of he was a go getter. He was a great guard. But as I
Right.
say, he knew I was a strange face in the town. Okay, because I hadn't been there in a couple of years, and I'd grown up, and so he stopped me, asked me who I was. I'd explain who I was in great length, and then once I told him who my aunt was, he put two and two together. But even through the years, when I was bringing my friends down from Dublin, I'd arrive down with maybe 7 or 8 lads. We'd stay in my aunt's farm. Sergeant O'Leary would arrive up to find out who the lads were, what their backgrounds were, and he'd keep a close eye on all of us. Even he was that kind of guard. He was very much on the button, and he had a very strong connection with the church as well. Which
Good.
so I
People
think,
were safe then.
yeah, the thing is, it was community, as you say, and
Correct.
you don't have that sense of community now, and you never see them on the beat.
Well, they should be outside. This is an example that we discussed before of the lack of respect of the people in charge, the government, uh, for the past good number of years. Whatever agenda they have, it's not the safety and the respect of the Irish people that they should be experiencing. I've given various examples of it, uh, as to how it happens, trying to make this country multicultural, but it's never where it isn't. It's Ireland. It's for the Irish, and if people come, they want to adapt to our culture and traditions, not the other way about
Hmm.
with what they're trying to do. So there's a whole heap of things. But this question of the Gardaí, they're well looked after by the Gardaí and well protected. But people in the country towns, in the city especially, the one place that you should be visible is in Dublin and various cities like Cork, Limerick, Galway, and other parts. But you never see them on the street.
Yeah.
Now, this is something, it doesn't matter that this is Ireland modern or something, and so therefore this, that, and the other. It's visible and known that the people in the community is the important thing, and connecting with the community. They're not connected now with the public at all. As a matter of fact, sometimes they treat respectable people with a degree of contempt at times, I think. Because don't forget, my father was a guard, so I know a little bit about it from the inside.
Yeah.
And they were well respected in the community. And when there was a Corpus Christi procession, which was widely supported in my young days, and when I say young days, in my 18, in my teenage years, and there'd be thousands in Boyle at the Corpus Christi procession, and it's still going on in Spain, by the way, not here, of course, or in parts of the other parts of the West, but it was very well supported here. And the Gardaí would be on duty. My father used to be on duty in a place called the Crescent, and stopping traffic that would be coming from Sligo or coming from Dublin. And there'd be another guard up at somewhere else. So the procession was able to allowed to proceed, which it did. And the priest would be carrying the sacred host and like what you have when it's a Eucharistic adoration in churches, it's in monstrance, and that's what it's called. And so therefore he'd be on that, and there'd be a kind of a canopy over him, and there would be altar boys or people holding it. That'd be an important job. And it was well supported because it was part of the community. But do you think it's not part of the community now? But you see, this is where the neglect come in from what our pastor, our bishops did. These were all so well practiced. Well, what was wrong with them that they watered down the faith the way they did? by taking out the auto raids, etc., etc. So I know we're talking about police, but this is where all this has come from, I think. And that in modern times is just as important. People are people. There were people when I was young, and they're still the same type of people needing the same type of protection and support. And the Gardaí are there for to provide that, for to keep the people safe. You won't know anything going around in cars. The same as if you spend your time going around in cars. How are you going to get to know anybody? I mean, if you're going around in cars, how do you know what's going on in the town? The sergeant who spoke about knew who was coming into the town, and he wasn't slow about challenging anybody.
I see
I mean,
the difference was, I'll give you
that's
an example. Sergeant O'Leary used to walk around, okay, walk around the town, and he
yeah,
wouldn't just talk to somebody when there was a crime. That's what's happened. What's happened now is the Gardaí will only talk to somebody when there's a crime. What Sergeant O'Leary
correct.
used to do was he used to talk to people, ask them about their lives, what they were doing, and then he got a kind of an idea of what's going on in the town because they'd tell him information, they'd be exchanging information, ideas, whatever, and that was
Yeah,
proper policing.
of course it was. Of course it was, and it was, and they were able to keep law and order in the real fun sense of the word. But funny enough, at that time they had the support of the courts as well.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, our courts are supplied by ex-solicitors and barristers, the judges and all the rest. I'm saying when they get on that role, they're supposed to be more independent. But unfortunately, in 1975, those on the Supreme Court diluted the powers of the Gardaí in the business of protecting society. Did you ever hear such rubbish in all your life? They did the opposite, and they left us all at risk because the Gardaí suddenly had to have so much evidence to convict anybody that they practically have to see them do the thing.
That's
Now,
it.
to me, that was a crazy thing, and it should. These things, we have a constitution there to protect the people, and Gardaí are there for that, and they shouldn't have to have such requirements about how to uh, react with people, and if there's criminal elements that they can check them as to where they got the money. They could do this years ago if they were seen to be living in a lifestyle that they weren't working apparently, and that would be the procedure of crime. Now you've got criminals producing drugs and that and driving in the latest cars and this, that, and the other, and they can't question them about where they get the money. They know where they're getting it from,
Yeah. The
from
thing is,
from from drugs.
I think, look, 30 years ago, we had a proactive police force, and what we have now is a reactive one. So that's the
Correct.
difference.
And that's not the way to do it. And those in charge should go back to the drawing board again, as I said about the bishops going back to the drawing board when there's so few Catholics practicing the Catholic faith. Go back to the drawing board, and the same with the state. But we shouldn't. This shouldn't have happened under any circumstances. The Gardaí should be allowed to do their duty without too many rules and regulations inflicted on them by any government. They're supposed to protect people. And that's what I'm saying. So, what you saw today with all the police out, they're protecting the VIPs. What about the people? They're there to serve the people. That's what they're there for. And so they won't serve them driving around in cars. The same as if I'm driving around in cars, how am I going to meet anybody? How am I going to meet people? You could be drift. Sometimes you have to drive in a car if you're going down the country 100 mile or something. But if you're around the town, you're not driving in a blinking car, you're walking.
That's it.
You're right.
Thank you very much, John.
So
Yeah.
when you're walking, if you were down in Listowel, you wouldn't be driving around. You'd be walking around
I will,
and you'd
yeah.
be bitting people at the time of day because you know them. And the only way you know them is because you live there and you mixed and people mixed with one another. And they knew who was up to no good and so on and so forth. We certainly did in Boyle when I was growing up. You just knew who the ones that we were at risk.
That's it.
But they were certainly they didn't have it their own way whatsoever. And so everybody was protected and it was joyful. That's why I often say those times were the happiest times and the most joyful times that you could ever live. And you even experienced it in your time in Listowel and them places.
Well,
And so
there were certainly safer times.
we know they were. And that's what is needed. That should never have changed the way it has. And what's the point of having Gardai if they're sitting in the station all the time or driving around in cars? You're not going to get know anybody that way. And forget about modern times or all the rest of it. You want to see them on the street, but not all driving around in cars. And now in Dublin, you can't really go anywhere in the car with all the restrictions, kind of thing. With the Lewis up and down every street that you can see.
That's one
So
for
have the police out there for the Irish people, for their protection, number one, and then for people to come to the country, they can feel safe to see police. So it deters criminal activity.
doesn't it?
But if there's no sign of police on the street, who's going to benefit from it? Not the ordinary honest citizen. It's the criminal benefits. They can do what they like.
There you go.
So we're at risk.
Yeah, we are
About
indeed.
time this crowd, this run of the country, woke up from wherever Rip Van Winkle sleep that they're in, or whatever it is that they're suffering
Okay,
from.
okay, John, we'll leave it there. Okay, listen, thanks very much for that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You're
Bye-bye.
welcome.